my dear students. Welcome back to this online platform. Hope you are fine. Here is your course outline. Today we will learn from your English second paper book, that's Grammar and Composition, and our today's topic degree. Let's move on. Let's see the picture here, and along with that picture, let's read the dialogue. So here there is a dialogue between mom and his son. You can see, "Mother, which apple do you like?" Rona says, "The third one." "Mom, why do you like it?" Rona, "It's look very large. I think it's larger than any other apple of the picture. It's natural that the persons who are younger at age, they tend to select the best one, right?" Mom says, "Yeah, in the picture, perhaps it's the largest of all apples." So, what do you understand from this dialogue? We have understood that here are three apples, and first one is smaller than second one, and third one is bigger than two apples, right? So here we are comparing with different form of adjective. So our today's lesson is comparison of degree. So after ending this session, you will able to learn, you will able to identify regarding the definition of comparison of degree along with classification of degree and changing form of degree. So what's called comparison of degree? Let's read this definition. Comparison of degree refers to different form of the adjective of any person or thing. So what does it mean? That means comparison of degree means you are comparing any noun or pronoun using different form of adjective. So you are comparing, that means you are using qualitative, that's qualitative characteristics. You are using here adjective, different form of adjective to compare anything. It may be person or it may be anything. So let's see the kinds of comparison of degree. It's divided here in three categories: positive, comparative, and superlative. Let's see the picture. First, Dhaka city. Second, a girl. So Dhaka is an old city. I am just using adjective. I am describing it, and using adjective just I am expressing its quality, right? How old is this? Dhaka is an old city. Here, old is an adjective. I am just expressing its quality. But I didn't compare here. There is no comparison. Just give a adjective and it's describing noun, city. In the second picture also, she is a beautiful girl, beautiful kid. So here, in case of positive degree, we don't compare. We just mention adjective to express its state, to express its certain quality or present condition. Next, comparative degree. You can see the picture. In the first picture, it seems to me tall than second picture. So Mr. Khan is taller than Arif. So in case of comparative, we are using different form. In the positive form, we merely use tall, but when we compare between two persons, then you have to use second form, that means taller. Mr. Khan is taller than Arif. We know that when we change from positive to comparative, we use second form. At first positive degree, you know, tall is a positive, then second form, when you transform into comparative degree, then you have to use year with adjective taller, and in case of superlative degree you have to use est with adjective. So in case of comparative degree, you have to keep it in your mind that you have to compare between two persons or thing, and you have to keep in mind another thing, that if here tall is a one syllable word, but when it is more than one, then you have to, you don't you in that case you should not use this, then you have to use more or most. So let's move on. Superlative degree, I have already discussed that in case of superlative degree, it is not limited to two persons or two things. It's comparing, we compare superlative degree among all persons, among all things. That means he is the tallest of all. You can see here more than two person, one two, if you count it, 1 2 3 4 5 persons, 5, and together along with 6 person. So among these persons he is the tallest. So in case of superlative degree, you are comparing among everything. Okay, I hope you have understood. Changes of degree. Now how will you change it from superlative into positive? You can see the picture. Superlative degree, and along with structure. At first we will read the first example. Sachin is the best cricketer in the world. Here best is superlative form, superlative. So how you can change it? Let's look the structure. You can see at first you have to use no other. Here we have used no other. Then look very carefully. After no other, you have to use the later part of superlative. So after later part of superlative, which one? Here superlative from best. So after best, you can see cricketer in the world. So here is the later part of the superlative form, cricketer in the world. So I have used no other, cricketer in the world according to structure. I'm just drawing my structure. So in the world, after that you have to use verb. Which one is? You have to keep it in your mind very carefully. When you use no other, your verb will be always singular. So here it will take singular verb is. Then according to structure, you can use so or as. You can use so or as. Then you have to use superlative to positive form. Best, the positive form of best is good. As good, then you have to use as. According to structure, then subject Sachin. So Sachin is the best cricketer in the world. No other cricketer in the world is as good as Sachin. I hope you have understood. Next picture, tiger. The tiger is the most ferocious of all animals. So how will you change it? Here you can see you have to use same structure. You have to use from superlative to positive. At first you have to put no other. Okay, then after most ferocious you have to use animal. Okay, so no other animal, then you have to use, no, after no other you have to, when you see no other, you have to, your verb is singular, no other animal is, then you have to structure as, then you have to use the most ferocious. So the positive form is merely ferocious, is as ferocious as tiger. Okay. Rule 2. Cox's Bazar is one of the largest sea beaches in the world. Cox's Bazar is one of the largest sea beaches in the world. So if you see or observe one of the, then your rules will be changed. One of the added sentence, how you will change it here. Let's look the our structure, and you have to use very few when you turn it into positive. Very few. So I have used very few. Then you have to use the later part of the superlative form. Here later part of the superlative of the largest sea. So you of the largest, then you have to sea beaches. Okay. Very few sea beaches in the world. Very few sea beaches in the world are so large as Cox's Bazar. So at first you have to, here you can see Cox's Bazar is one of the largest sea beaches in the world. At first you have to, according to structure, you have to use very few. Then after the later part of the superlative form, here one of the, so you have to, after you have to use the later part of superlative form, that sea beaches. Okay. Very few sea beaches in the world. Sea beaches in the world. Here sea beaches in the world is the later part of superlative form. Sea beaches in the world. Very few sea beaches in the world. And here is the most important thing for you. When you see very few, and verb will not be singular form. Verb will be plural. That's are. Very few sea beaches in the world are as so large as Cox's Bazar, and previous rule will be maintained here. Okay. So at first if you see one of the, then you have to use very few. Then previous rule, according to previous rules you have to change very few, then sea beaches in the world, that is the later part of the superlative form. Sea beaches in the world, then are, then as, then positive form, then as again, then subject. So very few sea beaches in the world, or as, or so as, are so large as Cox's Bazar. Next you can see Parliament House is one of the most beautiful buildings in Asia. You have seen one of the, so you have to use very few. Then after the forms, here later part of the most beautiful, so you have to use building in Asia. Buildings in Asia. Very few buildings in Asia, then you have to use plural form are, then as or so. So beautiful as Parliament House. Now superlative into comparative. You can see first superlative, Dhaka is the largest city in Bangladesh. So in case of comparative degree, you have to use comparative form, larger, and then extra word here. Here largest is the superlative form, so you have to use comparative form, large, larger, largest, larger, and you have to use than any other. You have to use extra word, that is than any other. Dhaka is larger than any other city in Bangladesh. You can see structure here. At first you have to use subject. Subject is at the initial stage Dhaka. Then you have to use verb, that will be singular. Then you have to use superlative to comparative form, that is larger than any other or than all other. Okay, according to context of a sentence. Then rest of the sentence. Dhaka is larger than any other city in Bangladesh. I hope you have understood. Our next example here, superlative. Burj Khalifa is the tallest of all buildings. You can see the picture. Burj Khalifa is how you will change it, tall, taller, tallest. So comparative form is taller. Burj Khalifa is taller than of all. Here you have to think about your context, of all. So you have to use than of all. Okay. Burj Khalifa is taller than of all buildings, than any other or than all other. If the sentence here you can see our sentence structure of all, so I have used of all, than of all buildings. Next, Superlative form here, superlative to comparative. Cox's Bazar is one of the largest sea beach in the world. How you can change it? At first, you can see the structure subject, then verb, then superlative to comparative form, then most other. Here there is another important thing you have to consider. That's one of the, in case of superlative to positive, you have used, instead of one of the, you have used already very few, but it is not positive, it's comparative, so you have to use here in the middle part of the sentence then most other. Okay, in the comparative form, in normal sentence you have used then any other or then all other, but when you see one of the, you have to be very careful. That's instead of one of the, in case of comparative degree you have to use then most other. Cox's Bazar is larger, Cox's Bazar is larger than most other sea beaches in the world. Other rules will be similar, but here is the factor is you have to change it in comparative form, and if you see here one of the, then you have to use then most other. Dubai is one of the most beautiful cities in the world. How you can change it? Same rules. Here you can see Dubai is one of the most, here Dubai is here most beautiful, beautiful, more beautiful, most beautiful. So the comparative form is more beautiful. You have to use Dubai is, then comparative form more beautiful. Here one of the, so you have to use then most other cities in the world. Comparative into positive. You can see Khulna is smaller than any other city in Bangladesh. You have to make it positive. So how you can change it? At first you have to, for positive, you have to use no other. Here is no one of the or very few. In case of very few, but I am not discussing that point. That is the sentence here, Khulna is smaller than any other city in Bangladesh. So in case here there is no anything, that's normal sentence, no other city. You have to use here no other city. At first you have to use no other, then the later part of any other, all other. Okay, so you have to use first no other. No other city in Bangladesh is, okay, is as small as Khulna. Same rules, just in case of positive, comparative positive, you have to write no other, then the later part of any other, then any other, if or all other. So no other city in Bangladesh, no other city, you have to change, you cannot write it then any other, you have to use later part of this. No other city in Bangladesh is as small as Khulna. Dhaka is larger than most other cities in Bangladesh. You have to, you have to very careful. There is a word that then most other. So when you see most other, then most other, in case of positive degree you have to use very few, and in case of superlative degree you have to use one of them. So very thoughtful in these cases. Then most other, so you have to use very, it is a Q point for you, which word you have to use. So you have to use very few, then later part of the superlative of this comparative form. Okay, here it's the comparative form, then most other cities. After the word is cities in Bangladesh, the later part word is cities in Bangladesh, very few cities in Bangladesh, or very few. When you see very few, you have to use or as according to structure, then you have to use large, that's positive form, again as, then Dhaka. So very few cities in Bangladesh are as large as Dhaka. Here rule 3, Mr. Suman is taller than Mr. Arif. In case of positive, how you can change it? You have to use last subject. Mr. Arif, then you have to use negative form. Mr. Arif, then you have to use verb Mr. Arif is, then negative form not. Okay, Mr. Arif is not as tall as Mr. Shumon. Here you can see structures last subject, you have to bring last subject, then verb, then not. Okay, if the sentence is affirmative or if the sentence is negative. Here the sentence is affirmative, so I have used negative form. If the sentence is negative, then you have to use affirmative form. Then you have to use so or as, then comparative to positive, then as, then first subject. So simply, Mr. Shuman is taller than Mr. Arif. You have to use first subject. You have to take out last subject into first subject. Then Mr. Arif, then subject is singular form is, then you have to use not as it is in affirmative form. Then you have to use as, then here positive form, then again as, then first subject. Mr. Arif is not as tall as Mr. Shumon. Comparative form, here comparative to positive, Abir is not taller than Rifat. You can see here it's a negative sentence. Okay, so you have to convert it in positive form. You should not use not in when you transform it positive. At first you have to use first subject Rifat, then is, then as tall as Abir. Rifat is, then you have to use as, then tall, that's positive form, again as, then Abir. I hope you have understood. Then positive into superlative. You can see no other man in the village is as old as Mr. Rahman. Here you can see superlative form. How you can change it? In case of superlative form, you have to take last subject. Mr. Rahman is, you have to use first subject, then verb, then the superlative form, the oldest you know. Before superlative form, you have to use article, the definite article the. Mr. Rahman is the oldest man in the village. Subject plus verb, then the positive form will be a superlative form. Okay, then rest of the sentence. No other boy in the class is as talented as Rafiq. So how you can use it? You have to use first subject Rafiq. Rafiq is the most talented boy in the class. Simply no other will be deleted and you have to take out Rafiq first subject Rafiq, then you have to use is, then you have to use superlative form the most talented. Talented here is more than one syllable, so you have to use most talented, is the most talented boy in the class. I hope you have understood. Now positive to superlative. Very few men in the village are so tall as Mr. Jaman. How you can change it? You can see I have a hints here. Which word you will use? Very few. So instead of very few, you have to use one of the. Mr. Jaman is one of the tallest man in the village. You can see structure, you have to subject plus verb singular form, then one of the, then positive will be superlative. Okay, very few will be omitted. I have already discussed rest of the sentence. So how you can change this? Mr. Jaman is one of the tallest man in the village. Okay, now you can see very few metals are as useful as iron. Same thing, iron is one of the most useful metals. Iron is one of the most useful metals. See the structure and its rules is similar. So that's all for now. I hope you have understood. It's a very important grammatical topic. You should see this slide again and again and keep it, try to recall it, try to mind mapping. That will help you how much you have learned. Okay, you will learn this and obviously you will practice it again and again. all the example, all this along with all the structure. At first you see the example how it is transformed, how it is being transformed into positive to comparative, okay, or comparative into positive or anything else. These three form, how you can change it by structure. So you have to follow all the structure and you have to practice it. There is no alternative of practicing. So that's all for today. See you in our next session. Till then, stay happy and obviously stay tuned on our online class. Thank you.